Where we at with the Knowles?
Oh, well, win and cover. Just, look in the paper tomorrow. Just looks like a nice, hard fought rivalry win, which it was. Man, that was not great early from Tate Rodemaker in the offense at all. FSU had negative yards, I believe, through the first 20 minutes of the ball game, and I was like, look, they're not turning it over. So as long as they don't do that, maybe if Florida can't pull away, they'll find some footing. Um, I thought a couple really real key things. Number one, they really like the defense stepped up pretty hard. Like that they Florida got the one insane roughing the passer, which kind of thought Norvell was going to swing at the guy, and it looks like Norvell actually calls like he actually is waiting to like run on the field to yell at him, and he does like out past the hash marks, and then at the end of the game, you can tell he points at the ref and says something to him too as running off, and he ripped him as well in the press conference tonight. So like that was Florida's touchdown, right? Um, Defense played really well. We talked on Big Game Breakdown about would Florida have left tackle Austin Barber, and if not, that meant they had to play Damian George at left tackle, and that was really a deciding factor in the ball game because Jared Verse ate Damian George's lunch and dinner because it was a night game, I guess. They got it together enough. Early on, they were trying to run a bunch of like split zone, and that like Florida was eating that up, which I was kind of surprised because they had not played that very well. No. They went to some of the counter stuff. They went to some of their duo looks, and eventually Benson in the post game he talked about, hey, like Norvell and those guys had told him, hey, you have to be patient. There's gonna be a lot of 2-yard runs, and then you'll have the opportunity to break a couple explosives, and he did. And then you throw enough jump balls to Keon and Johnny, eventually you're going to get a couple. Like it was a pretty physical game. There was a point there I was like, I don't know if they're going to win this because like they've got to get Tate settled down. They have to get the offense settled down around Tate Rodemaker, and they finally did. But it was a little nail biting for sure.
I think it was brilliant strategy on Mike Norvell's part in that he prepared for Florida State's Big Ten future by winning a Big West game today.
Dude, it was.
Because that's what that was. I was watching. I was like, I've seen Iowa and Nebraska play this game yesterday. I've seen Minnesota and Wisconsin do this all the time. That's exactly what this game is. 2 backup quarterbacks in late in the season. Nobody can move the damn ball. You're just waiting for somebody to screw up. And I think that's a huge win for Florida State. I mean, it wasn't pretty, but considering the situation and what is still on the line, like Chip, you and I, we were texting earlier, like it would have been so perfectly ACC for the week before the ACC championship game for both Louisville and Florida State to lose to their SEC rivals. Like what a great way to get hyped up for the biggest game of the year in the conference. But Florida State, after getting off to a slow start, kind of rallied, found its footing, and it's not completely understandable because you're playing in the swamp. It is not exactly the easiest place to play a football game. So you were shaky at first. You found your footing. You found out what was working for you, and you just kind of stuck to it, and you eventually wore down Florida's defense. But you're right, but I don't think I'd ever seen Florida get a stop on a split zone at any point this season until they were doing it tonight. So I was very surprised by that too. But like then you figured it like, okay, well, that's not working. We're going to try this. All right, now we can get the ball. We can get Trey Benson going. He had the 3 touchdowns. It was a workman-like 95 yards from Trey. And just doing enough to get the win right now, which is really, if you're Florida State and you've lost your starting quarterback, that's what you have to do. It's not going to be pretty. You're going to have to play ugly. Like next week against Louisville, if you're going to win, it's not going to be a pretty win. But all that really matters at this point, if you're the Knowles, is you win. Because if you win, you're going to the playoff. And then, yeah, it's going to be tough. But I don't know. You can't rule anything out. We've seen stupid stuff before.
Bud, you mentioned the post game. I have not gotten a chance to follow up on any of the post game comments. Any other takeaways from what Norvell said after the game?
Yeah, he just talked about like, hey, like we knew it wasn't going to be easy. It's hard to communicate down here. I don't think Florida State has had. Maybe they've had like 1 delay of game with the starters. They had like 4 delay game, which I'm not. Did you guys think the delay game on the punt was the correct call? The fake punt.
Oh, did they get it off in time? I couldn't tell.
I kind of thought they did, and I was like, oh man, that was really.
I heard the whistle before the snap. I know that, but I don't know if it was an early whistle or not.
It was probably the right call. Like, but you could tell just operationally, especially with Tate in there. Like, I think they had like 3 or 4 delay of games tonight with him in there. It's a little bit different when you're trying to find stuff that you think you can call, for the backup in hostile environment. So, they chat's saying
It was close.
Probably depends on what team is in their logo.
I think so too. Yeah, the chat says kind of a split. No, like that is a good win for them. Like you get to go 12-0, right? Like that's pretty huge. You get to play Louisville next week, and we'll see what happens. I think what else is big for them. They were a 6.5 point favorite, right? Against a better team than Auburn is. We think Florida's better than Auburn.
With Max Brown in there, I think it's close.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, with Mertz, they're definitely better than Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
I would think. You saw Washington struggle at home as a 17-point favorite, right? Or 16 or whatever the game finished up as. So I think from that perspective, it's like, oh, other teams that are favored by more, it goes down to the gun. Like that, their performance certainly didn't help them. I think the performance of people against whom they'll be judged probably helps them a little bit.
Struggle bus Saturday.
Seriously, it was.
It was. Everybody at the top. Like, nobody lost. We didn't have any of the upsets, but there was no easy blowout win for anybody at the top of the polls. On the Florida side of things, and I tweeted this during the game, and this has been just endemic with them all year. That is a dumb team. That is a team that is addicted to doing stupid stuff week in and week out. I tweeted, I said, they're like the kid in elementary school who would eat anything for a quarter. And that's really what they do. And there were so many stupid, needless mistakes on their part in this game where they could have won this game. Had they just had some discipline and played smart, they're probably going bowling. I mean, sure, they're only 6-6, but at least they get to crow over destroying Florida State's playoff hopes. Instead, they're going home. So it's their own fault.
Can I rant just real quickly on quarterback sliding?
Well, before that, I just want to say, I believe that Marco Wilson, is that the one who threw the shoe?
Threw the shoe, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that Marco Wilson has become a spirit animal. I agree with your take. And I just think that everything that we have seen since Marco Wilson threw the shoe, it's just kind of echoes of Marco Wilson throwing the shoe.
I mean, yeah, like spitting, some of the just the silly late hitting, like blocking guys. It was. This is not a targeting rant. You guys know my opinion on targeting. I think targeting is kind of a made up concept, right? Yeah, like, and I get a lot of hate for this take. I get it, but like I do think targeting is made up just to protect the power brokers in the sport to try to say, like, hey, we're doing something about head injuries, right? Even if it's questionable as to how much it really helps. We've got to stop teaching these guys to slide when they're not clearly in like wide open space, because the flag is not going to save your brain, right? Yeah, you got a penalty and now you're in a wheelchair, right? Like on a critical third down, dive, get down, right? Don't slide, because you really can't, like, there's no force field around you when you slide. Like Rodemaker goes down. I thought it was kind of a late slide, honestly. Those guys are charging in. It's a critical 3rd and 14 in the ball game, and they smoke him. And like, okay, the targeting flag comes out. I get it. Like it's a targeting by the rule, and it's probably not that close compared to some of the ones we complain about. But still, like, that slide does not protect you from getting absolutely smoked. Like if you guys want to watch something, I watch a lot of American Conference ball. Hennigan for Memphis is how coaches should teach this. He does a great job of like seeing where the guy is, getting down, and does like a little like dive thing. I just think it's so much safer. And like he never takes the shots to the head. Like we've got to stop teaching these guys to slide. Like at least not unless you're, I don't know. Like we should make some kind of thing where like you could not avail yourself of the protection of the late hit rule if you slide and anybody's within like 2 steps of you. If you're completely wide open, then fine.